Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the business podcast, Truly Your VA with Janis. Online entrepreneurship, I want to say, is not for the faint of the heart, but let me tell you, today's guest is amazing, and she really has the backdrop of so many different systems in place. So without further ado, I want to welcome to the Truly Your VA podcast my amazing guest, Breanna Bortner.
Yes. Hello, everybody. So great to meet with you today and get to know you all a little bit more. And of course, can't wait for you to tune into Janis's and I's conversation. It's going to be a fun one. We have lots of parallels in our career and lots of things that are also very similar. So
yes, we sure do. And as we were, starting the process of going online, going live is never easy, right? And there's always these technical glitches. And I want to just say, before we really dive into the conversation, you are an online business manager. You help high achieving female entrepreneurs create balance in their businesses by implementing sustainability, scalability, and systems. Wow. Because that can be very overwhelming to anyone.
yes, definitely. And a lot of people, that are in that entrepreneurial mindset, they're usually like the dreamers. They're the people who see 10 years in advance. They have all of the ideas, but they don't know how to actually implement them. So that's where hiring myself or someone else kind of with my specialties in online business management comes into play, is because you're actually hiring that person who loves to implement, who loves to audit, who loves to find solutions, who likes to kind of be in that day-to-day type processes. So it's something that's really fun for me because I get to kind of help balance somebody out when they're already 5 years in the future. And I make sure that things work today and are going to work 5 years from now.
That is such valuable information to begin with. And, I think what you're pointing out too is that you help with those solutions because, for instance, when I first started my online business, I'm not gonna lie, I was overwhelmed. Like, okay, what systems do I need to have in place? And I think a lot of times they think, oh, we kind of get that shiny object syndrome, like, oh, I should have this or I should be doing this, when really it just boils down to simplicity to get certain systems in place. And obviously that would be a little different for female entrepreneurs. For instance, you're an online business manager, a podcast VA at booking and marketing manager. So it may be similar, but it could be a little different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. And, even all of the businesses that I walk into, they all have different structures. They all have different business models. They all have different goals. So that means that the systems are also going to vary beneath that. And so it really does take someone to come in. It's not a one size fit all approach. It's not like, one thing I don't like about the doctor's office is you go in and they're like, well, this is the medication you need. I'm like, well, why? Because there's 50 options. Like, why is it this one? And I help my clients kind of figure that out. So, we're picking an email marketing system. What do your processes look like? What do your goals look like? And then we kind of narrow down what system we're going to use from there. And I actually had a post go out on my social media today, which is very fitting with this conversation because it's talking about how you have to define your process first, then you can choose your system. A lot of people are out in this world like, oh, look at all these systems people use, that so-and-so recommended this one, so obviously I need that too. And that doesn't necessarily work all the time because that system has to work for you and your processes as well. So I like to kind of throw that out there and let people know that you don't need to just pick a system because someone that you really like on Instagram uses that system as well.
And I think that's really a very honest and key factor, because when you chat about defining your process system, I go back to when I first started podcasting a little over 3 years ago. And, I tell this conversation all the time, and I'm sure, and welcome everyone currently on the Wisdom app. I'm sure people on Wisdom app have heard me say this. I started the Two Sisters podcast. It definitely was my idea, but I said to my sister, hey, we should start a podcast. Great. Well, you get everything up and running. And she hung up, and I'm like, okay, great. Now what do I do? Like?
She's like, Janis, you're good at this stuff. Bye.
Apparently I am, I guess,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing. We all, bring different things to the table, of course. But that was and I was thinking about this last night as I, posted an update that, hey, tomorrow I'm doing this amazing Truly Your VA podcast with Breanna Bortner on my personal page. Everything goes out very systemically, very automatic like. And after I posted it, I thought back to when I had that conversation with my sister about starting a podcast. And I came to the realization that it took me a little over 3 years to really figure out the processes, to define the processes and systems that really worked for me, because I am a very visual person. Like, the process has to make sense. And although I want to say, trying new things, I'm glad I went through that, so to speak, because now you boom, 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 a few clicks and, I've got it all worked out.
I love that you pointed out that it took years, because that is so true. It's just like a weight loss journey, or it's just like, a health journey, anything like that. It really, truly does take time. And it reminds me of one of my clients who provides 3 different main services: brand photography, web design, as well as brand design. She's been doing photography the longest. I mean, she used to be a wedding photographer, boudoir photographer, newborn. Now she's doing branding for people like you and I. And that process for her is down to a T. It is down to a science. She's got it down from the editing to the gallery delivery, all of that. And it's because she's been doing it for years. That's something that I don't even need to really help her with in her business, because she is a pro at that. The newer services, though, like web design and brand design that have popped up within the last 2 to 3 years, let's say, those she really does need help with still, defining those processes and making sure it's a positive client experience. And so I think that really does speak to that. Like, you do have to do something for years, and then the industry changes, at different points along that as well. So really give yourself patience and grace and time, and know that processes, systems, all of that is like a living, breathing thing. It's always changing. And just because you have one process doesn't mean you can't update it. It's never set in stone or permanent.
Yeah. And, that is so true, because if I had waited for the perfect time or to have it all figured out, I wouldn't have started podcasting, and here I am now, niche down my business even further to be a podcast VA booking and marketing manager. And I think I have, I don't know, it's 820 something. I'm close to 830 episodes between all the 3 podcasts. And while I always say, I kind of pause for a moment and say, that's kind of a significant number, but more importantly, it's the people that I've connected with along the way. And it's what I've learned as an onlinepreneur along the way as well.
Yeah. And I'd be grateful that perfectionism, or like wanting to have the whole process ready, didn't stop you, because maybe that means that you would have started a few weeks ago, like all of that time and memories and relationships that you would have lost. So yeah, perfectionism, or, fear of failure, those are things that stop people a lot. And sometimes they need a person to guide them along the way, or they need a process to guide them along the way, whatever that is. But I do see that in this online entrepreneur space, that's something that gets people hung up on some of those bigger goals that they have set for themselves.
That is so true. And, thinking in terms, of course, of scalability. And I know that, a lot of conversations that I've had with different entrepreneurs, our time is valuable. We all know that. We all have the same 24 hours. We've had several different discussions, with my sister or different entrepreneurs. And what I have found with scalability is, and you're the expert on this more than I am. I'm just speaking, of course, from a personal perspective, is that when you need to scale up, like the signs are there. In fact, I had a discussion with somebody yesterday about this, and I know, and I have a vision. I have a vision of at some point, I'm working up to it, is hiring 3 people. An online business manager, a VA for the administrative, just like all the little stuff, and then somebody who does like just this, like the sound bites, different social media, and I just like kind of do my thing.
Oh my gosh. Look at that. And you're like kind of already living in that too. Like you've imagined what your life would be like with those 3 people in place. Like that is truly manifestation. Yeah, that sounds amazing. And a lot of people, they have a hard time letting go. And so that's what stops them too. You're like, well, I love doing the sound bites. You know what, like I'm really particular about my social media. I don't know if I'm ready to let that go, or I don't want any mistakes going out to my clients. So I better manage all the email and manage the inbox. A lot of that stops people because they have said to this, their business is their baby and they don't want anyone to come and mess it up or steal it or anything like that. There's a sense of control and ownership. And being excited about bringing people in and bringing the right people in is definitely the mindset that you have to have when you go into that season where you want to scale. And when you truly want to step into what I call your CEO shoes, when you're ready to truly step into those, means that you have to let go and you kind of have to be unbothered about some of those things that happen behind the scenes. And you don't need to know every single detail in your business anymore once you get to that point. There's people who should take care of that for you and will let you know only the very, very, very important things.
You know what? Thank you so much for clarifying that further. And I think the other part of that as well is, if I can, how do I say this? Because I probably won't say it correctly, but we're talking about time. If I'm dedicating a time, let's say a block of 1 hour, and I'm working with one of my clients, that other stuff still needs to get done, but I'm in the long run, I'm saving money because maybe that hour probably was going to administrative stuff when I should have been working on client stuff. Am I kind of correct in that assumption?
Yeah, I mean, everyone looks at time differently, and money and the value of money varies between people and people. But yeah, I mean, an hour of you doing something versus an hour of an expert doing something. If you hire someone that just does social media, they're going to do that really quick, really well. They're going to have a defined process of their own. That dollar goes a lot further versus someone who's multitasking, trying to get it all done. Multitasking is literally the opposite of productivity. So when you're paying a few other people experts who do this day in, day out, they love it, they know it, things I think unfold a lot quicker. And you might see progress a lot quicker for yourself as well.
That is so true. I'm working toward that. That's definitely on my vision board. I have a question about when, for instance, clients come to you, and, as we were talking about scalability and things maybe perhaps that they, don't want to let go of. What do you think are some of like the top things that you've heard about maybe a complaint or something that they didn't want to give up, but they gave it up and they're like, why didn't I do this sooner?
Yeah, I mean, people for sure have their guard up because they've hired other people in the past and it hasn't worked out. So I think that causes people to put a guard up as well. But yeah, it could be, everyone's different. So some people are really particular about words, right? Like they want every single word, whether it's an email or a caption, they want that to come from them. Some people are more particular about the visuals, like they want every little design or graphic that goes out to be ran through them. It really does vary what people are particular about. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it is that they're nervous about. It just matters that you as a service provider or me as the service provider, that we can build trust with them and show them, I've got this. And especially when you're in those first few weeks, first few months of a new engagement, it's proving to them and maybe doing a few more check-ins. And then as your engagement progresses, you slowly don't do as many check-ins or many approvals anymore, because they finally have that trust in you and you've built that camaraderie, things like that. So I think, it varies for everyone. But the process of getting over it is kind of the same.
Okay. Now, specifically about systems,
Mhm.
I always say there's an app for that. And, I'm kind of a geek when it comes to that stuff. I freely admit it.
Mhm.
But if the app is going to consume you more than the task, obviously, I think it goes back to what you can take on, what you can learn in a short amount of time, and what works best for you. What would you say is the best app, for instance, for task planning?
Mhm. So there's kind of two big ones out there that I would say that I've used the most. Number one is Asana. So I do use that for project management, task delegation, setting deadlines, uploading information related to tasks. There's also one that's a little bit more robust called ClickUp. So I have used both of those. I'd say quite intensely, depending on the client. So again, it's not like every single client of mine has the same system. I learn with them and kind of decide how their brain works. Everyone's brain works very uniquely. And then I kind of propose a system to use for project management and collaboration between us. So those are the two that I would say are kind of the best. And that could be totally biased just because I've learned to be comfortable with them and enjoy them.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I actually asked that in one of my Facebook groups this morning. So I'm interested, to hear what everyone has to say, to evaluate, the process. Like, for instance, you said ClickUp, you thought is more robust.
Very robust. Yeah, there's a lot of automation and customization that you can do within that platform.
Now,
Yeah.
another question that I have about systems,
Mhm.
the Zap thing.
Zapier.
So
Yes.
is that like, and again, I'm trying to educate myself, and I've been looking at it, and it almost seems like, this is the analogy I use, it's almost like an extension cord.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So essentially, Zapier is there when you have a system or a task that doesn't directly integrate with something else. Um, so I have, for example, one of my favorite Zaps that I set up is when someone signs up for a program or a master class, something that's paid, I have it filter into a Google Sheet.
Mhm.
So that's something like you can't go into Kajabi and say, export all of this to a sheet right when people sign up. No. So I have a task running for some of my clients that automatically populates everyone who purchases. And then we can manage who is in the Facebook group and who needs to be removed, cancellations, things like that. So there are certain scenarios where you want to do something, but there's not an integration to do that. So Zapier is kind of the middleman that helps one system speak to another.
Oh, okay. So
Mhm.
yeah, I'm kind of thinking as I'm thinking of my next question, but that makes sense because, it, like you were describing, you have a simple process that, collects that information and automatically puts it in your Google Sheet
Mhm.
for so that you can, keep track of it and whatnot. What would you say? And I'm really interested in this. Microsoft Office, Google Suite.
Ooh.
What do you like better and why?
Very good question. So I have to preface that I was in corporate America for about 5 years prior to me starting my own business about 3 years ago. And I used Microsoft products, obviously. And in college, I used Microsoft products. I came into the business world, started using Google, and realized, wow, these programs are so much better. So I'm actually a Google girl. And I actually have had a client who is a certified Google trainer as well. So she taught me so much about capabilities of the Google platform. And so much of it is free, which is amazing for new business owners or people who are just freelancing or starting to dabble in the online world. All you need to do is sign up for a Gmail account and you have access to so many different tools, forms, sheets, all of that stuff, which normally to get the Microsoft products, you have to pay like an annual fee now, which is a little bit bogus. So I say Google all the way.
Oh, you know what? I love Google Suite.
Mhm.
Of course, use it obviously for many things. And for some, but I consider myself tech friendly, but then there's like these things that are a little bit more difficult. And I just find Google Suite very user friendly.
The biggest thing, and it's kind of a funny like joke online, but trying to search for like a past email, searching in Google, so easy. You search in your mail and you can find an old email that maybe referenced a keyword or something. You try to search that same thing in Outlook. I mean, that system doesn't, it won't even find it. It's just like missing forever in a black hole. So there's simple things like that that you realize like, oh my gosh, I love this system. This one's really working for me. And I use it. I use Google all the time, even for high-end clients that make 6-7 figures a year. There are still systems in Google that are very applicable, very user-friendly, and everyone's kind of familiar with them at this point. So I am team Google.
I love that. And, another thing that I love about Google as well is, of course, if you're working with a client, you can share their Google file. So there's not a lot of, going back and forth with emails. Like,
Mhm.
let's say Monday, if you have to upload your social media, to get their approval or however you do it, they can go in and look at it and, there it is. And it's just so user friendly. I love it. And I started out using obviously the free version, and I kind of like free when I can get free.
The free version can get you a long way. So if there's any new business owners out there, just do yourself a favor, sign up for a free Gmail account and play around with all of the systems. I mean, there's great stuff out there. And I am a big supporter in using those free versions of everything until you get to that point where you're like, I'm ready to take that next step. So
Mm. Yeah, that is so true. And of course, I purchased uh, my domain name through Google Suite. So even though it's a
same.
.com, it's
Mhm.
through, it's Google Suite. So I love
Mhm.
that as well. What, oh my gosh, what system do you love as far as Canva, PicMonkey? Like,
Mhm.
what is your favorite go-to design application?
Yeah. So I actually started using Canva when I was in my corporate role. I was tasked with creating an internal newsletter, stumbled across Canva and absolutely fell in love with it. So even before I started a business, I used it at my corporate job. I actually used it for a lot of my like wedding materials actually as well. So I've had a lot of experience with it. And then when it came to starting to create graphics for my business, Canva is where I resorted, and it is such a fun and user-friendly platform. It's like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. It's all of those kind of in one, but easy enough so that like your mom could figure it out. Like it is that type of system that really have thought of everything. They're continuing to come out with new features and effects and things like that. And I'm obsessed. So that platform is doing something right. And they're making design accessible for people who may not have a background in design or a degree in design. So that is something I strongly encourage everyone to kind of play around with and kind of have fun with. And of course, there comes a time and a place when you need to hire out a designer or a brand strategist, but it is pretty fun to make stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I certainly agree. And obviously I use Canva. I've tried PicMonkey but I started out on Canva and I just like really got into it. And by the way, I'm so obsessed with gradient colors.
Yeah.
On my designs, like if I have a gradient color, like, oh, turn it up, nope, turn it down. Like it's so easy and it's fun.
Yes, there are some great features in there, like the background remover can be very helpful, like one click. When I was in high school, I took graphic design and like literally you would have to like go around the whole edge of something in order to like remove it from the background. And so to have that in one click now, and it's pretty like 95% accurate, it's like such a treat to be able to do something like in the world of instant gratification. Canva has some of those features nailed down that work right away. So
Yeah,
that's a fun one.
Oh, it certainly is. Now, here's kind of a technical question. Let's say you're working with a client in a different time zone. And it's the morning for you, but it's the afternoon for them. So do you say, good morning, Breanna? Or would you say, good morning, good afternoon, Breanna, if it was the afternoon? I've heard a lot of different things about that.
Yeah. The furthest I've worked with someone, so I'm in Central Time Zone and I've worked with someone who was in South Africa before. So that was probably the most drastic in which it's morning for me and night for her. But I would say that most of my clients are within the 4 time zones in the US or Canada. So that makes it a little bit easier because it's not too different. Yeah, I know those greetings can be so difficult. Like, and you always just assume everyone's in your exact time, right? You don't usually think about what time of day people are in. So
yeah, and and the funny thing about that, I was thinking about my friend in Australia, and they have, and please somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is Australia has 5 different time zones.
I don't know how many time zones they have, but I believe that they're about 16-ish hours difference in the future.
Something, in the future. So for me, because I'm so OCD with certain things, like if I'm referencing like the date of their podcast, Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, 11 a.m. Eastern. So Wednesday, June 14th, 2023 at
I can see how that comes up a lot, especially like the graphic that you made for our chat today, like how you're referencing it in mine and your time zone. I can see how that comes up a lot in your business.
Yeah, and I have to highlight it different colors in my emails because I'm further OCD, which can be a good thing, just saying. Yeah. So Breanna, what is the process when a client comes to you?
Yeah. So really depends. So I kind of have people come to me for 2 different reasons. One is retainer services. So someone wants that full suite of support. They want me to be their kind of right hand wing woman. And that's a big discussion because we pick the people that we work with, and I'm so grateful to be able to pick the people that I work with. And so I bring them through a vetting process where they fill out an application. We do an interview. Sometimes they'll have me do like a project or something like that for their business, just to get an understanding of my working style or my quality of work, things like that. So that process is definitely more intricate because we're working together day in, day out. We're essentially choosing our coworker. And And then when someone comes to me and they're looking for a one-off short-term project, I do offer like half-day VIP sessions for people, systems implementations, things like that. That process isn't as much intense because we're working together for a short while to get a quick win. So they'll come to me. Again, they'll still fill out an application letting me know about the project that they have and kind of the expectations. And if our timelines and everything align, we work together for until the completion of the project.
Oh, wow.
So there's either long-term engagement or kind of that short-term engagement.
Understand. And let me just make sure that I write that down. Check. And I gotta get here. But anyways, I think that's a great process to do because, you know, being an online entrepreneur, you want it to be a good fit for them, but also obviously a good fit for you.
Yes. And especially when I was just getting started, you know, I'm sure you can relate to this too, but you turn into kind of a yes man. Like, hey, I have this project. Do you want it? Yes. Do you want to work together? Yes. Do you want to take this on and have it due tomorrow? Yes. You just kind of do everything and say yes. And then over time, you realize how that makes you feel. And when you don't have boundaries, you feel pretty crummy about yourself. At least I do. So now I have more of a vetting process. I know how important it is to really have good working styles. I ask a lot of people about their leadership and working styles, human design. There are so many different things that go into kind of finding that match made in heaven when it comes to clientele. And so over the years, my business model has changed quite drastically to being quantity of clients. Now it is quality of clients, and now it is less volume, but higher retainer. So that is the model that has worked for me and has made me the happiest because at that level, I'm able to get so deeply involved in someone's business. And I'm able to kind of get my hands in a lot of different areas. And that's something that's really fulfilling for me. Whereas if I'm kind of one small portion of a business, I don't feel as valued, or I don't feel, I don't know, I just kind of like to be in everything. So growing in this way has allowed me to really lean into that and enjoy getting to know every attribute of a business.
I so love that. And I want to point out also that, you know, you mentioned boundaries, which is critical, even when you start out to being an entrepreneur. And even in the process, when you're scaling up, you have to have those boundaries in place. And it's okay to say no. What is one thing as an entrepreneur, being obviously you're an entrepreneur, online business manager, and you look back at your journey, what is one thing that you perhaps thought, you know, I'm not sure that I want to do this a specific way, but now you are in your journey where you are today. What is that thing that you learned that maybe you didn't feel that you could get there?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things when you're first starting out, and especially in the coaching world, right, when you get dropped into this little online world, you see all the coaches and you see everything that's kind of going on there. And they're always talking about 5K months, 5K months. You got to get your 5K month, 5K month. Like I felt like that was just like ringing in my head, 5K months. And when you're first starting out and you have clients paying you hourly, or very low hourly rates, which are still higher than what you made at corporate, but still very low compared to online industry standards. You're just like, how am I going to get there? I'm going to need like 30 clients to get to this 5K mark. That was really hard for me to kind of visualize. And I felt like that number, the coaching world really just shoves all these numbers in your faces that make you feel like you need to be earning that. And through time and through coaching and through programs and through personal development, I now have clients who pay me 5K a month, one client. So that is like the biggest shift ever, from having all of these clients and being like, I don't get how you're going to get there, to having one client who values you enough to pay you that much. So that has been the biggest shift for me, is realizing, again, quality over quantity. And yeah,
Wow.
that's something that just like takes the words out of my mouth, because it's crazy to see how far you can go.
It really is. And I think it also goes back to your mindset. Like you have to shift your perspective, and instead of saying, oh my gosh, how am I going to get there? You
Mhm.
owned it, and now you are living it.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's just one thing, and that's just one numerical thing. That's just one aspect. That's a little bit more tangible, I would say, to grasp than some of the other things that I've learned along the way. But yeah, I would say that, this season of life has made me realize to not take things personally. And it's something that I was working on ever since I was in corporate. I would take things so personally. Everything that someone else did, I'm like, gosh, that's because of me. I feel horrible. They're doing this to me. Like everything was like inserting myself in the equation. And now as a business owner, I've had to have discussions with clients. I've had to let go clients. I've had these tough decisions, raising my prices, things like that. And I realized at the end of the day, it's not personal. It's just business. And some of my greatest friends have been clients. And if we've had to part ways, we say, this is nothing personal. We're just doing business here. And that's something that I think has also helped me. I've seen that growth over the last 3 years, is knowing that like, people are all living in their own world, all with their own issues and motivations, and nothing is about you. Don't give yourself that much credit. And that's something I want to give myself credit for, is overcoming that type of mindset and just kind of staying in my own lane.
Thank you so much for sharing your deep insight to your perspective on that journey, because that is so important. I think that we have only just begun this conversation. I am so grateful for the opportunity to have this chat with you. And I almost feel in a way, I was taking some notes, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. Like you have to grasp what what you are capable of. And you did exactly that and created an amazing business for yourself. And I find that so inspiring, so enlightening, and I'm so very proud of you.
Thank you. This whole space is so inspiring. And so, I mean, if you want to be in a place where everyone's lifting each other up and trying to be the best versions of themselves and trying to learn, that's something I've just fallen in love with this online space. Is everyone is out here not to be complacent, not to go to a 9 to 5 and be like, well, that's it. That's all I have to give. To be able to try new things and learn like firsthand life experiences. And everyone is out here for the greater good. It is such a fun and uplifting place to be. And you're one of those people that I've, met along the way, Janis. And it's so enlightening to speak with people like you, who are also motivated and can see the big picture, and are just out here every day, just doing amazing things. So thank you for having me and introducing me to your community as well.
You are so welcome, Breanna. Before we sign off, how can our viewers and listeners connect with you further?
Yes. Well, I'm most active on Instagram, so you can find me there. My username is at Breanna's Business Boutique, and Breanna is Breanna. And you can find me there. You can drop in, send me a DM, let me know if anything from our conversation resonated with you today. And definitely keep your eyes peeled, because I do have a special promotion going on this month in June.
Oh, we shall check that out for sure. And thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, I will make sure all that information is in the show notes. I want to also thank all of our amazing listeners currently on the Wisdom audio app. I see so many familiar names, so thank you so much for being here. And of course, if you want to re-listen to this podcast, you can definitely listen to it again through the Wisdom audio app. And of course, once it's uploaded, excuse me, it'll be available on my website as well. Whew. My name is Janis, the host of Truly Your VA with Janis podcast. And remember, perception, mindset, boundaries, those are the key to scalability, sustainability. And if you have any questions and you're ready to up level your game, please contact Breanna, and I know will sure be able to help you in some form or fashion. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you again, Breanna, and we shall see you again real soon. One final thought. Remember, it's about connecting, engagement, collaboration. That's what I stand by. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye for now.
Bye.